let's talk about the book. It's somewhere there.
Somewhere over there.
Big orange one there.
That's it. That's the book.
That's the one right there. So that's your first book, yeah?
It is my first book, yeah, Back to Nature.
So how was that? How was that whole sort of process from start to finish? First of all, being asked about, let's write a book. Was it your idea? Was it Chris's idea? Did a publisher approach you? Was it something that you just both thought, oh, let's do this together? How did it come about?
We were actually approached by our publishers, Two Roads Publishing. They're fantastic. My publisher, Kate Hewson, is just absolutely amazing. And so we got asked after South Isolating Bird Club and after Springwatch whether we would consider writing a book together. And my first reaction, as a dyslexic person which has struggled with reading and struggled with, I'm quite, I'm okay at writing. I wouldn't say I'm good at it, because I never like to say I'm good at anything, but I do really enjoy writing, but I'm very slow at it. I'm very slow, so I've got a lot of kind of anxiety there, I suppose. But I've worked really hard at my English. I did it for A level, and I used to write really long essays for uni, so I my writing's fine, but it's just I'm very slow at doing it, because I like to look at a sentence and I'll agonize over it for about half an hour to make sure that the words are the words that I want, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I mean, I'm writing as well, as you know, so
yeah,
I rewrite a sentence maybe 6 times, and then I'm just like, oh, it is what it is.
Exactly, and I've just got to get used to just continuing to write and not be stuck on like a sentence or a word. But yeah, so the first time that it got mentioned, I was like, oh no, writing a book, that's really scary. Because as a kid I was like really scared of books. Like someone would hand me a book and I would just be so intimidated by it, because I just it just was never something that I was good at with my dyslexia. And we kind of thought about it for a while. I thought, you know what, a book with a purpose at this point in time that reflects what we've been through this year and reflects the connection that people have found with nature, whether that's a renewed connection or something new entirely. We wanted to write kind of a handbook about what we could do to help protect our environment in the UK. And it starts off quite localized. We talk about what people can do in their gardens and in their communities to make a difference. And then we also talk about the bigger issues in terms of persecution, politics, activism. So it covers a lot of concepts. Some of it is quite heavy, I suppose. Chris goes off on a few rants, as he likes to do, putting the world to rights and everything. And I also wanted to put in some kind of key scientific, kind of, I guess, Springwatch like science nuggets in there.
Yeah.
And the whole idea of that was just, yes, our environment is in trouble. We're seeing these declines and we're seeing habitat degradation at a rate and in a state like never before. But I also wanted to remind people of why we love nature, like why we need to be able to protect it, whether that is, by marveling at how amazing dragonfly eyes are, or whether that is talking a bit about the oldest organisms found by Japanese scientists, like little gems like that make people go, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So it's a real mixture of tones and a mixture of elements in the book. But all we wanted to do with it is to spark conversation. You don't have to agree with everything that's been said. You don't have to love all of it.
No.
But you should, it should promote thinking, and it should promote hopefully a little bit of action, because we all say that we love wildlife, but it's no longer enough to simply love that wildlife. That wildlife that we love is in trouble, and what do we do when something we love is in trouble? We fight to protect it, and that's what we have to do now. Is we have to start acting. It's not love. It's not enough just to love it anymore.
No.
It's, okay, what are you going to do about it? So that's kind of the premise of the book.
Yeah, I mean, I get this, the sparking of interest is what I love when I go to the schools and I take in the praying mantis and I take in the stick insects. These kids, when you take these out, to begin with, they're really scared and they're really like, what's that? And then by the end of the day, they're all asking to hold, they're all asking to show me more pictures. Oh, can you zoom in on this? Can you zoom in on that? And the minds are absolutely blown. And then they'll go home and tell their parents, or they'll go home and tell their friends, and you create this ripple effect, and the book will have a similar effect. I absolutely love seeing nothing more than interest and conversation, being sparked, just because you've sort of allowed these children, these people, into this world that they would never normally see. You talk about nature being sort of a helping aid for us and our mental health, and it is. And a lot of people don't understand just how much it helps people, how much you can help yourself. Just spending an hour outside really does help. And the book does help you with that. I've not read it all because I've got a million books. Well, not a million, but I've got a good few books up there that I've not read at all. So I'm trying to work through them. But it's interesting as well that you say you dyslexic. I had no clue, and I suppose a lot of people won't know this. And I suppose a lot of people will just assume that you're okay because you're doing this presenting and it comes across so flawlessly. Minus the one or two hiccups. So sometimes, yeah. So I know a lot of people will probably be now, and this is why I'm doing this podcast, is to try and get a bit of inspiration out there. And you're a person who may have had we'll do celebrity like this stepfather, and you may have had these opportunities, yet you've created this career for yourself, and then people will also be inspired by, like, well, you're dyslexic, so you'll have people who are listening to this who are dyslexic and think they can't do anything, when in reality, well, you can. Nothing can stop you from doing anything you want to do. So yeah. I find that very inspirational, and I think a lot of people will take quite a lot of inspiration from that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm severely dyslexic. Whilst my English skills have massively improved, despite the fact I was very behind, my math skills, honestly, it's awful. Absolutely. I mean, do not ask me times tables, Matt, because honestly, we'll be here all afternoon.
Oh God.
I'm really, really bad with numbers, particularly. And for the longest time, I almost didn't do my zoology degree because I felt that I wouldn't be able to cope with the mathematic element of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something, even when I was doing my GCSEs, and it was at a period where I was choosing my A levels, I ended up choosing the wrong thing because I ended up actually kind of going more down the performing arts drama route. And I got all my Lambda qualifications. Little did I know that actually it's quite helpful now to have those kind of drama studies. But at the time, whilst I loved wildlife and that was what I wanted to do, I kind of suppressed that because I had a teacher at nursery that told me that she put me on the dumb table, and I overheard her saying that I was put on the dumb table. At this point, I hadn't been diagnosed with dyslexia, and I overheard them talking, and at that point, I moved schools, obviously.
Yeah, that's horrible.
And it was really horrible. Really, it's something to say to a 4 or 5 year old child is really detrimental, actually.
Yeah, definitely.
And so I ended up moving schools, and I had my dyslexia examinations and everything. And I went to a school that was so supportive, and I had a couple lessons a week and after school lessons just to help me cope. And it's not that I just learn differently. I'm very visual. I learn differently than a lot of other people do. So I got the support that was needed, and when it came to kind of choosing A levels and then going on to thinking about my degree, I just thought, if I don't give this a go, I'll never know. And it's what I want. I can do drama. I love drama. Like, I can memorize lines, which is quite, again, quite helpful now. And I just thought, if I don't give it a go, working with wildlife and becoming a scientist, which is what I wanted. I love being out in the field. I love being out in Africa. I love taking data, and I love it. I can't, statistical analysis is, I struggle with, but but I love kind of the scientific element. I really enjoy it. And I just thought, if I don't give it a go, then I'll never know. So I ended up doing a foundation year in biology to catch up on my maths, my chemistry, physics, and then went into do zoology. And I'm so glad I did it. And anyone out there who is dyslexic, who does find things challenging, my words would always be, find someone who can support you in finding the best way to learn for you. And try it out. There's no, right or wrong way to learn how it suits you, learn at your own pace, and just go for it. Absolutely go for it. I don't know, I could be on acting or doing something ridiculous now, but I'm so glad I made that decision.
I think it's quite great of you to be quite honest with me about that, because I genuinely just not, and this is a thing that I think we all do, is we just take things on face value a hell of a lot, and we'll be like, oh, you're doing presenting, you're doing this, that, the other, you're fine, there's nothing wrong with you. But everyone has their own battles behind these closed doors. You know, you've had a bit of mental health issues during lockdown, the anxiety side of things. You know, this dyslexia must be a constant daily battle. Yet we only ever see, and this is, you know, we only ever see the end product, whether it be a presenting on TV, whether it be a status on Facebook or Twitter. We never see the nitty gritty behind the scenes. You know, we never see the real struggles. And I think this is why so many people get so hung up on their own lives, because they only ever see a finished product. It's all they ever see. They never see, yeah, you might see a nice family posed photo on a beach somewhere, but you've not seen the half an hour previous trying to get the kids to sit still, or the arguments about where you're going to take the photo or whatever. Nobody sees that. They just see a finished product. And that's, you know, it's one of the dangers, that we just take everything so much on face value that we forget what life really is. People have struggles. Everyone has struggles. And we need to stop thinking and being so hard on ourselves that, you know, if we have struggles, that, you know, we can't do something and we're a failure because we see someone on TV who's being successful. But in reality, they've gone through hell to get there, you know, and yourself, you've had this dyslexia and stuff. I think it's really inspiring. And I'm actually like taken aback because I didn't actually know. So yeah,
We talk all the time, Matt. I'm surprised you didn't know.
yeah, it's crazy. But you know, one thing I want to touch back on there in the conversation we just had about humans doing something. You know, we love something, we should do something. I find we get a lot of, and I like to call it armchair conservationists, where they'll tweet and they might sign a petition and they might share. And then that does help, you know, word of mouth is great, but that's as far as it goes, you know, and then they'll go about their daily lives and they'll still buy products that are using, you know, palm oil, unsustainable products. They'll still go about their daily lives, the consumerism, and not really care or think about what they're doing. But then they'll still tweet, oh, don't do this, don't do that, don't do the other. And I find that personally frustrating because I think, well, you have an opportunity to get up and do something, you know, get up and do something. We're in this together, and we're only going to get out of it together. And the world is in a real bad place right now. And people like Chris will be really honest about that, and they will be brutally honest. And some people may not like that because people don't like hearing the truth, you know, and people might get annoyed at what I'm saying here about this old armchair conservationist thing, but it's, you know, you need to get up, you need to do something, you need to utilize the time that you've got. I work shift work, soon to be ending, but I do work shifts, and I can work a night shift. I can get 2 hours sleep, and I can get up and go to a school and spend 3 hours in the school, because I know that what I'm doing is making a huge difference, you know. And yeah, I might be a little bit tired, but I can catch up on sleep. Do you know what I mean? I can relax maybe on the weekend, relax. But you know, I feel like people just need to do more. I feel like retweeting a petition and signing a petition, it's just not enough anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's spreading awareness, clicking share. It's always really important in terms of getting the word and the message out there. It
Mhm.
is, you know, and I always encourage people to do that. But is it enough? No. I mean, again, it's, you know, putting on a front. It's almost greenwashing in a way, and greenwashing is something which has been spoken about. You know, it's been Earth Day recently, and greenwashing was a huge problem. It's where, you know, it can be on an individual level, or it can be in terms of kind of companies and commercial levels, where, you know, people might share something, they might, you know, put a green sticker on something, and therefore it's green, it's eco-friendly. Or I've shared this, therefore I'm portraying myself as someone who's eco-friendly.
Yeah,
You know, and that's all great, and you know, you can portray yourself, but it's also important to actually be eco-friendly. There's no
exactly. Yeah,
point in just putting a green sticker or retweeting something if you're not doing anything
yeah,
about it. No, I think that's really important, that people need to get up and start acting at the same time. And
yeah,
don't be intimidated by not being perfect, because nobody's perfect. You know, it does seem overwhelming, you know, the climate crisis, the biodiversity crisis. It's a lot. It is a lot.
mhm,
It's a lot for everyone. um you know, it's my job to constantly talk about it. It's my job to read up about it and to try and talk about those problems. um it is challenging, you know, when you're facing that every single day. It is difficult and it is a lot to deal with, but don't be afraid to not be perfect in everyday actions. Just by doing something different from yesterday that's better is a success. So if you wake up and think, okay, well, today I'm not going to eat meat, or today I won't drive my car, I'll cycle in, or all these individual actions, or go to the supermarket and think, oh, that peanut butter is good, but that one doesn't have palm oil, therefore I'm, saving orangutans and the
Yeah.
rainforest.
But
You know,
it's small changes.
it's small changes, and you can do them gradually. Um, everything like that is a success. The more you can do faster, obviously that's great, and I'll always encourage
Yeah.
that. But do what you can within your means, and always try for more. Always try the following day to do something different, because we're all in this together. And whilst it might seem like you're only one person. I get this all the time. I'm just one person. It doesn't really matter what I do. You know, that's not the case whatsoever. Every single person counts, and we need every single person now. We
Yeah.
need people to be making those small changes. We need them to be careful about what they're consuming. Do they need a top for a fiver?
Yeah.
Which there's the environmental element of that. There's also the human element of that in
Yeah.
terms of human welfare and where that has come from.
Yeah.
Question what you're consuming before I pick up and buy anything. I always ask myself, do I actually need this?
Yeah.
How much do I need? Particularly when it comes to clothing, I'm very kind of critical, and I love clothing. I like,
Yeah.
I'll openly admit that, but I'm just careful. I'm trying to buy more secondhand stuff. There's loads of stuff that we can all do. But yeah, think, what are you consuming? What could you do differently? What messages could you get out there? Don't shout at people from your armchair to do things differently if you're not doing things differently yourself. We all need to be in this together and support one another, and we can make the change. We know what the solutions are. We've just all got to be responsible for implementing them on an individual level, and also lobbying our governments, lobbying the big companies that are really having the main impact, the main causing the main problems. We've got to be responsible for lobbying them to do better and not greenwash.
Yeah.
It's some of the big companies that petrochemical companies that I've seen greenwashing recently is just horrendous. Call them out.
I think it's almost a trend as well, and again, this is a side effect of not just social media, but I think the generation we live in, the YouTube generation, where everyone wants to be an influencer, everyone wants to be famous, everyone wants to be, look at me. And deal with that. You say the Earth Day thing is the plaster all over social media for the one day. And I was speaking to Joe Harkness about the mental health side of things briefly this morning and whatnot. And the mental health week will come and people tweet about mental health, but then do nothing the following weeks after, and they're not really interested. It's the exact same thing. People just it needs to be consistent. Consistency is key to anything. There's no point in just screaming from the rooftops, I'm great for one day, I can do this for one day. But I think it's a generational thing. I think people just hung up on trying to please people. They're doing it for likes, they're doing it for shares, they're doing it for that little kick in the brain just to make them happy for that one day, and it becomes addictive. This is what social media is like, but we can make it a good addiction if you do it every day. You can see the results that you're making these small changes. And I was guilty of it myself for so long. When I before even I had my first autumn watch appearance, as you know, photography came about for me through mental health and other side of things. But as a teenager growing up, I didn't really care. I didn't really take an interest, and it wasn't until, and I always say this, that spring watch, autumn watch really did change my life, because it opened my eyes to so much that I didn't know existed, that I began to make small changes to my life. And then I began to think, well, there's no point in, I used to tweet the tweets, and I'd start my own petitions at some point, but never do anything about it. So I started a petition about getting natural history on the GCSE programs for schools. And I started a petition, but didn't do anything about it. I just retweeted it. And it didn't get nowhere. And I was like, well, why not actually go into the schools, do something about it? You know what I mean? And that's, I think we can all definitely take something from that.
Yeah, absolutely. And whether that's going into schools, whether that's volunteering your time, whether that's if you're able to donate, or whether that's just being careful what you buy. There's lots of different things that we can all do. And I think spreading awareness and engaging and using social media to its advantage, it does definitely have its damaging sides. It really does. I've managed too many social media accounts.
Yeah.
But it is such a powerful tool for for conservation. it's really important. You know, on a personal level, would I use it as much as I do if it was just me? No, absolutely not. No
No,
way.
no.
But I use it to kind of get messages out there, and to try and support people, and to support communities, and to support wildlife, who, you know, elsewhere, and need, you know, a platform. I've been lucky to been able to build a platform, and
Yeah,
you know, that's an opportunity there to use that to full advantage, really, to get the stories that need to be heard out there.
yeah, definitely. You're talking about the clothing. Do you need clothing? I mean, I'm sat here in a pair of shorts that I've had 10 years. You know, really. And I don't, the only thing I buy is t-shirts, really. Um, that's the only thing. I'm just a bit of a t-shirt geek. So I'll have various anime characters or whatever I'm into on those. But yeah, I mean, clothing, I've got stuff that's so old. But I think, well, it still works. It's still clothing. You wouldn't throw out a PC if it still did what it needed to do. Do you know what I mean? So why would you do it with clothing? Unless it's got a big hole in it.
Yeah, and I think on average these days, you know, particularly for younger generations, with everything like ASOS and, you know, the big outlets, I think it's on average that like a pair of jeans gets worn 3 times before it's thrown out, which is unbelievable.
Crazy.
And everything, yeah, it's really, really shocking. The fast fashion industry is a real big problem,
Yeah.
because people don't want to wear outfits twice. You know, they want to look different every day, and they don't want to wear the same thing anymore. um you know, and so it is really kind of dangerous. Sustainable fashion is really important. It's a conversation we should be having more.
Yeah.
um yeah, and consider the amount of gallons of water that go into making jeans is honestly
Ridiculous.
blows your mind. It would blow your
Mm.
mind. And the problems with places like ASOS, if you send you know, you order something in, you doesn't quite fit you, so you decide to send it back. It doesn't get repurposed out. It goes straight to landfill.
Yeah, it's
um,
ridiculous, isn't it?
which is, you know, shocking, because so many people just send things back now. They try it on, send it back, and it goes straight into landfill, and it's such a waste, such a
Yeah.
waste.
I remember when I first started with photography, I was on a photography forum, and someone had sort of a graphic designer took this guy's photograph of a motocross rider, and they turned it into a PNG, and they stuck a chimp's head in the place of the cyclist's head. And then it was next, I think, or anyway, someone, and they printed this t-shirt, tens of thousands of them, children's t-shirts. And he found out, and he was like, that's actually my photo. Like, what's going on here? So he contacted Next, and he got a lawsuit going, everything else. And then Next were like, okay, we'll pay you, and we'll destroy the t-shirts. And he was like, how many have you got? And they were like, oh, we've got like 300,000 or something in stock. And he was like, why are you going to destroy them? It's like, please donate them to children in Africa, you know, places where people don't even have clothing. It's like, why would you destroy all that product? I just don't get it. And you don't get an insight into things like, you don't even know stuff like that goes on unless conversations that we're having now, you know, and people might listen to this and be like, I never knew that goes on, you know, and I never knew that went on until I watched, or until I read this sort of forum, and I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. It just goes to landfill. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And then now you've got, you know, a load of kids cutting about somewhere on the other side of the world with motorcyclists with monkeys' heads on the t-shirts. But you know, at least it's clothing, it's being used. You know what
yeah,
I mean?
exactly.
And
You've got to
it,
make the most of the resources that exist. We don't need to be creating more at the rate we are. You know, I've got, you know, clothes that are very old. I've still probably got too many clothes, and it's a
mhm,
privilege that we're able to buy clothes the way that we do. But we're such a wasteful species. We just waste everything:
yeah,
food, clothing, you know, absolutely everything is
yeah,
just wasted. And that's, you know, something that we need to really change our attitude towards.
yeah. I think we're very complacent. We know thing if we can get something easy, we'll get it.
Yeah,
We don't want to challenge ourselves, and I touched on that
next day
before.
delivery.
Yeah, yeah, and this is why the world is the way it is, because of this attitude that it's easy, it's quick, it's done, I want it now. And you know, you're saying about people don't want to wear the same outfit twice. Again, I always bring it back to social media. I think social media has done so much damage for things like this. Is if I was to not be on social media, let's say it's 15 years ago, and I wore the same clothes for 3 days in a row, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but I seen you on a Wednesday, you'd be like, oh, that's a nice outfit. But on social media, you'll see me on a Monday, Tuesday, and a Wednesday in that outfit. And then you start getting anxious and thinking, oh, I don't want people to see me in the same outfit. They might think I'm a scruffy, or I might think I'm poor, or whatever. And it's trying to keep up this appearance all the time. And I think, you know, it really annoys me, it bugs me. It's one of my biggest bugs, is that humans are so I'm so fickle. You know what I mean?
We are. We definitely are. We want things immediately, and our expectations are incredibly high. That being said, we are also, whilst we have those kind of selfish negative tendencies as a species, we are also incredibly adaptive. But the problem that we have is that we are reactive and not proactive. We see
Hmm.
things that are bad and we see things happening at an alarming rate, but we're not reacting now. We're going to react when it's too late. And we'll
Yeah,
be able to kind of fix some of it, but we won't be able to fix all of it. It's like, endangered species. Sometimes we go, oh, that's declining. That's a bit of a worry. Oh, no, there's only 100 individuals left. Oh, we should probably do something about that. Oh,
hmm,
no, they're gone. Oh, that we were too late on that.
yeah,
We always realize things too late,
yeah,
but we have to be forward thinking, not just about our own lifetimes, but about the lifetimes of our children, grandchildren, the future of the planet. We
hmm,
need to, it's not about us, because we are here for a very, very brief second,
yeah,
millisecond,
yeah.
in comparison. So it is, more about the world itself, and open up our minds to that different time scale. Ultimately, in 500, 1,000 years time, are humans still going to exist on this planet? Who knows? And that's what I look to when I think of timescales. I don't think about my lifetime. I think much more broadly, and we need to stop having this kind of short-term thinking and
Hmm.
start thinking long-term. I think that's the most damaging thing, and being proactive and not reactive.
Yeah, I think everyone is just too concerned with, like, we're almost trapped in this, like you say, it's almost like a time scale bubble, and we're not thinking beyond our own lives. We're not thinking anything beyond what you want to do there, and almost sort of making a name for yourself, but in a good way. You can create something now that can help humanity in the next 2, 3, 4, 500 years. Why
Yeah.
would you not want that legacy? That's an amazing legacy. I'd love to do something like that.
There's that quote, isn't there? It's a wise man plants a seed of a tree that he will never sit under. And I think that's really lovely, because it encaptures all of that. You're
Hmm.
planting seeds of trees that you're never going to see grow to maturity,
Hmm.
but that tree will be there for a long, long time after you're gone. And
Yeah.
there's something quite beautiful in that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And yeah, I love trees, and I love when you see. I mean, Scotland's full of amazing trees. And going up to Glencoe, and there's this little walk that we do, and the trees are huge, and they're massive, massive trees. You need like 4 or 5 people to get your arms around them. And I'd always think to myself, like, how did that tree start? What was life like when that tree was just starting out as a tree? And it's been here, and it's weathered all the storms, it's weathered all the everything that's been thrown at it, and it's still here, and it's still there, and it's still strong. I absolutely, trees amaze me. I absolutely love trees. I sometimes just go up to and just touch a tree and just look at it, and I'll sit there for 10 minutes just in my own world. Do you know what I mean? I absolutely love him.
Yeah,
Um,
if it could see, what has it seen, or what has
yeah.
it heard, or what, if only we could tap into that kind of memory if it had
Oh God,
one.
could you imagine? Yes, they've probably seen some sights. Um, So, I mean, I think we've come to the end of everything really that I wanted to ask. If there's anything else, I just forgot. Um, so I'll probably follow it up. If there was any advice you could give to anybody as a young person now who wants to get into TV presenting, conservation, science, what advice would you give them?
Practical experience is the most important thing. So get out and volunteer. That's a really important thing, because it builds up your communication skills. You might be talking to guests that come in. You'll be working within a team, which is always really important, but also gaining practical experience in conservation and working directly with animals. When I was 12, it was the first time I started volunteering. I volunteered at Brent Lodge Wildlife Hospital. I went back there this week for the first time in a long time, which was
Wow.
amazing. Doing filming hadn't changed very much, and it was lovely to see what they're doing. But so I started volunteering at a wildlife hospital, and that was great because you got to understand more about native species, and how to look after them in terms of husbandry and everything else. Go on placements, but be careful which placements you go on. That's always something. Really look and do your research into different placements and internships. A lot of them, unfortunately, are more money grabbing than opportunity giving, and so definitely kind of be cautious of those, but also don't let it deter you from doing the right ones. Just make sure you pick the right ones. There's lots of advice out there on choosing internships and placements. When it comes, if you're interested in presenting, then always, start a show reel. You need to have, a 2-3 minute clip, short and sweet, of you in front of the camera. You don't have to have a big fancy camera. You really don't. Your phone will do perfectly. Just go out and about and film yourself on a walk explaining about butterflies or bees, whatever you come across, and put together a little show reel and start building connections. We've talked about social media. It's really an amazing community on there of like-minded, young, nature-loving people who are so open and excited about their natural environment. So start commenting, start questioning, and start talking to the community that's there, and get involved in the conversation, and use social media. And that's a real great way of building connections with people in the industry, as well as just kind of enthusing about your love of the planet. So yeah, practical experience and build those connections, really.
Brilliant. And if you was to speak to your younger self right now, you had an opportunity to speak to a young Megan. What would you say? What would you like to say to her?
Wow, that's a question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I would tell myself not to stress so much, probably. But take a breather. Don't stress so much, and go for what you want. Don't be deterred by what people expect from you. People will always expect a lot, but don't let those higher expectations stop you from doing something.